Let's call the meeting to order. All are present except for David Van Hooser, and he will be absent this evening. Our invocation this evening will be given by Kevin Ward. Kevin is with the Central Assembly of God. Is Kevin here? If not, I will ask Rodney to lead us in prayer, and after that, I will ask Rob Camp to lead us in flag salute. Rodney?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for letting us come here this evening and make a privilege to live in this country that we can meet like this and discuss different things of our city. Also, as we go into another week, we want to be reminded of our neighbors to the south that Lord, you put a guiding hand on their shoulders through these tough times with these storms. It's a tough deal, and hopefully we don't have to go through that, but we can also be in prayers for them. In your Father's heavenly name, amen.
Please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rob. Oh, no, down there. Item 4, consider approval of minutes of the special sessions of May 15, 17, 20, 2013, and the regular session of May 21, 2013.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Ron.
Second.
Second by Rodney. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Under item 5, awards, presentations, and organizational business. 5.1, present pet available for adoption at the city animal shelter.
Pug face.
Hi. Hang
My
on.
name is Officer Jared Free with Enid Animal Control. I have with me Jack. He is a 1 to 2 year old pug. Somebody brought Jack in because they found him on the road. And something special about Jack is you could tell he's been through a lot. He has lost one eye, and he has one eye, but that doesn't stop him from getting around doing what he wants to do. He's very excited to be here today, as you could tell if you heard him panting the whole time, you know. But we got a lot of animals at the shelter. We would like to keep our adoptions increasing, and I would love to see Jack get a home, you know, especially a pug, very loyal, toy dog. He would be a very good companion for somebody. So, but if you have any friends that need a dog, cat, anything, if we ever get ferrets, sometimes we get ferrets in, you know, we'll adopt them out. And if they're looking for something like that, just tell them to call us at the shelter. And if we get something in, you know, we'll let them know we have it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Item 5.2, appointments of the mayor and the Board of Commissioners to various boards and commissions. Joan.
Mayor and Commissioners, the Board of Commissions sit on various city advisory boards, and at this time, we have several with a few openings, several that still have carryover commissioners that are going to continue to serve. All appointments are made by the City Commission with the exception of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, which is made solely by the mayor. The mayor may serve himself or designate a member of the commission to serve in his place. There are several boards here listed, and I'm going to allow you to tell us which boards the commission will be serving on.
Well, we've already filled the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission, and that was filled by David Van Hooser. By the way, I've talked to all these people, and they have all approved being on the different commissions. Those that are on commissions now, I did not call because they're going to carry forward with that. Obviously, if they want to change, they know how to, Mike knows how to do that. Anyway, the Enid Public Transportation Authority, the new member will be Benny Zell. The Pegasus Board, the new member from the commission will be David Van Hooser. Special Sales Tax Oversight Committee will remain the same. Ron, are you on that? Yes. Okay. Community Development Block Grant Funding Commission, the member will be Rodney Tim. 911 Board of Enid and Garfield County, Rodney Tim will be the member. The Enid Metropolitan Area Human Service Commission, I think whoever's on there now will remain.
That's Mr. Jansen.
Pardon me?
Commissioner Jansen?
Yes, that's correct.
Enid Regional Development Alliance, the new member will be Benny Zell. And Mike is on there.
Yes, currently I'm there.
Northwest Oklahoma State University Foundation, the new member will be Benny Zell. Those are the new members. Do we have a motion to accept these?
Motion.
Motion by Mike. Do I have a
Second.
Second by Ben. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you for volunteering.
Again.
Again, re-upping, I think that's a term. Consider appointment to the Special Sales Tax Oversight Committee.
Mayor and Commissioners, the term for the Ward 1 representative on this committee has expired. Members of this committee are appointed by the commissioner from each of that respective ward. This appointment will be made by Commissioner Jansen.
Mayor, my appointment was Jerry Allen, former city commissioner, and lives in my ward.
One other thing I might add is this appointed representative will serve until March 1st, 2016.
We need a motion to approve that?
Motion
Make
by-
that motion.
Motion by Mike,
Second.
second by Tammy. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item 5.4, appointments to the Aviation Advisory Board and Fire Civil Service Commission.
Yes, the city clerk has advertised for vacancies to these boards and commissions. The following appointments are to be considered for the Aviation Advisory Board. One vacancy to be filled by a resident of the city of Enid to fill an unexpired term to March 1st, 2016. This vacancy is due to the resignation of Mr. James Neal from the board. Applications and ballots should be in your packets. And if you will, if we have either of these two candidates here in the audience tonight, you're welcome to stand and say a few words to the commissioners. We have on there Caleb Easterwood and John Ward. Are either of you here tonight and would like to say a few words? I think so.
Please cast your vote. While you tabulate them, we will take the Fire Civil Service Commission.
The Fire Civil Service Commission has one vacancy to be filled by any interested citizen of the city of Enid. The applicants are T. Jeffrey Luke, William Stitsworth, Larry Schaffnet, and Jerry Whitney. If any of these candidates are in the audience tonight and would like to address the board, you're welcome to do so now.
Larry Schaffnet. I've served on this board past. I think I've sent most of you an email kind of giving you a short bio of what I've done with fire service. I spent 26 and a half years with the Enid Fire Department and 2 years with the street department before that. So I felt like that the city, I need to the city served me and my family well, and I want to give back to the city, and I feel serving on this board, it helps do that. My work with as a consultant for the Center for Domestic Preparedness keeps me up with my emergency service. We train emergency service responders from all over the United States, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Virgin Islands. That keeps me up with my skills for emergency service, and then also it kind of keeps me aware of the trends that are going on in emergency services. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have of me.
Questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please cast your votes. The vacancy on the Aviation Advisory Board will be filled by Caleb Easterwood.
Two.
We will wait before we get into the hearings till Sonia does her magic. Whoa. We have a tie. Do we re-vote on these same ballots?
But it will be between these two.
Okay.
I have one.
We don't vote between
Who are they voting between?
Oh, I'm sorry. Larry Shaffnet and Jerry Whitney.
I do.
Does everybody have a ballot? Okay.
And if we have another tie, what do we do?
Vote again.
Might have it decided.
Install a,
So you can climb a ladder fast.
just
Trying to stay
less
thematic.
Yeah.
It's fine too.
I have a feeling. The shift.
Yeah, but what if two people switch their votes to the next go around?
What's happened?
Yeah, great.
Lifted. Still not the other one. Yeah, we have 7 or 8.
6 right now.
Yeah.
Still tied. Still tied.
Dead heat. We have a tie.
So what happens when it ties twice?
Pardon me?
So what happens when it ties twice? It's, so then, I mean, we could do this all night. We're just gonna keep tying?
Somebody could move to table this appointment.
Pardon me?
Well, if you had your last commissioner here.
Yes, I'll make a motion, we table this to our next meeting.
So we have a, yeah.
Hopefully, we'll have enough people here that we can break the tie.
I know I'll be.
I imagine this could just keep going and going and.
All right, everybody changes and switches. We have a motion.
Ron made a motion.
Ron? Second.
Second,
Rodney?
whichever.
A motion and a second, to table till the next meeting. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item 6, hearings. Item 6.1, conduct a public hearing on the proposed 2013-2014 general fund, special funds, enterprise and debt service funds, Enid Public Transportation, Advanced Development Authorities, and related budget documents for the City of Enid. Gerald?
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, this is the required public hearing that we need to have to give the public an opportunity to formally give you input. I'm sure they've been giving you input all along anyway, but this is a chance for them to do that. I think several people are signed up. This hearing's required. We advertised in accordance with law on May 29th, and we're having it 15 days before the new fiscal year starts. So I think, Mayor, I'll sit down. There's several people, I think, signed up that want to talk.
That's correct.
There is,
Before we get started, we have a lot signed up tonight, so I ask you to be considerate of the commission's time, and I don't want to place a time limit on you. We're all adults, and I expect you to make your point, and
This is Ed, and it's the 25.
first one, under item 6.1,
That's what they got last year.
Anthony Negast?
Negast.
Last year was split it differently, just came from a different place, but it's the same amount.
Would please state your name and your address.
My name is Anthony Negast. I'm a financial representative for Modern Woodman. I'm also the chairman of the board of directors of Pegasus and a community producer. I wanted to thank you, Mayor Shuey, and the commissioner for letting us come in and talk tonight. I have a couple board members here I'd like to have stand up when I call their name, just so you know who we are, because Pegasus is a very big part of this community. So I have Ron Scheidmantel. Ron is with the NOC. He's a student of Dean's. And we have June Butrix. She's the board treasurer.
Students either.
With us forever. So that's a good thing. A few things I just wanted to pass along to you. I wrote them down because I have a tendency to forget and I don't want to get them wrong. Last year, Pegasus provided over $520,000 to the public in the form of equipment and facility use. That's almost a 63% return on your money. That's very good. There were 225 nonprofit organizations that had the opportunity to be on our community bulletin board and community talk. So it gives the public access to do exactly what they're doing. So far, we're on what, June 5th? We've done 170 shoots on location already this year. Some of them being meetings like this, some of them being Red Dirt Barbecue, football games, anything that we are asked to do, we do. We have a lot of exciting things coming up. We're going to have a citywide telethon in September. That's the first time, isn't it, Wendy? First time we're going to be doing this, so that's exciting. We're going to be having a film festival in the spring, a national film festival, bringing people to Enid. We've been talking about it for quite a while. We've had a lot of interest, and finally we're going to go ahead and pull the trigger and do it. We're going to be offering some high school classes, college classes, and VOTEC classes at Pegasus. This year, aren't we? Or beginning of next year. Other than that, I just want to let you know Pegasus is out there. People are watching us. They're watching us on TV. They're watching us online. And they've been very supportive of what we do. So I'd like to continue that. I want to thank you guys for supporting us in the past, now, and hopefully in the future, in the long future. So thank you very much, and have a good meeting.
Thank you.
I missed this one.
Larry Stevens. Larry Stevens, item 6.1.
Okay, I want to thank the manager and commissioners for letting me speak tonight. My name is Larry Stevens. I live here in Enid, Oklahoma. I born and raised here in Enid, 65 years, and my dad was a policeman here for 20 years under Dale Moxley. I served in Vietnam in 1968, and I retired from ONG after 42 years here in town. So Enid's my city of choice. Lived here all my life. It's been a great city. I'm here tonight to talk about the Santa Fe Depot building there at 200 blocks West Walnut. I understand the city owns this building, and it's overseen by the RSVP. We are in desperate need of a roof repair, and the way I looked on the website, there's been $100,000 allocated for the repairs of this roof. We do use this building for 15, 20 functions a month. DAV, senior citizens, it's birthday parties. The building is being used, but it is desperately needed roof repair. The bathrooms are in great shape. The kitchen's in great shape. If we can get the roof repaired, it's in walking distance of our beautiful downtown Enid that you guys are building. And we just really need this to be approved and allocated to get the roof repair and hopefully some other maintenance done on it. But the building is functional. There's things happening there all the time. Been birthday parties, weddings. It's a great building. It's a history of Enid too. So just would appreciate, I will read what I was told tonight, is we would like to take this opportunity to thank you for listening to your citizens and about the Santa Fe Depot. We appreciate your prompt attention to the concerns we addressed about the poor conditions of this building. We believe that the roof is in a good start to the many repairs that are needed to maintain one of Enid's greatest facilities used and operated by Enid residents. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one is Julie Baird.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, since Leonardo's opened in 1995, the City of Enid has played a vital role in our continued success. For the benefit of the newly elected commissioners, I would like to use my time tonight to take a brief walk down memory lane. When the entire community came together the next year to build Adventure Quest, the City of Enid helped make sure it happened. In return, the plan developed by the city attorney at the time called for Leonardo's to turn over ownership of Adventure Quest to the city to ensure and maintain, and the city would pay Leonardo's to operate it, thereby helping the fledgling museum. But by the time Adventure Quest was completed, a new city attorney had arrived and an alternate plan was developed. The city opted to leave Adventure Quest as part of Leonardo's and would instead pay general operating funds each year to help and ensure and maintain the facility that draws thousands of people to Enid every year. At the time, the agreed upon annual amount was $50,000. Over the years, as new city managers and new commissions came and went, that amount was gradually decreased by 40%, and Leonardo's was in real danger of having to close its doors. But in 2004, Leonardo's was selected by the Donald W. Reynolds Foundation in Nevada to become part of the Oklahoma Museum Network, and new life was breathed into our organization. It took 4 years for the network to become a reality, and in 2008, the Enid City Commission stepped up once again, increasing annual funding by $10,000 to pay one half of the annual network membership fee. Leonardo's pays the other half, and in return, Enid gets more than $1 million in direct benefits every year, including new state-of-the-art hands-on exhibits every 6 months. Those exhibits give people a reason to visit regularly. Leonardo's averages 90,000 guests per year, including repeat visitors, with about 48% of them originating outside Garfield County. Research proves that out-of-towners outspend locals 2 to 1, so we are very happy for our part in increasing sales tax revenues in recent years. A few years ago, another new city attorney arrived, and the rules changed again. This time, we were told that all funding from the City of Enid must go back to the community in the form of providing access for low-income children and families to Leonardo's and its educational programming. Since our board of directors had already made that a priority, we were happy to oblige. In fact, we have worked diligently to leverage those funds into more scholarships each year, reaching an all-time high of more than $91,000 given back in 2012. We thought you would be pleased with our efforts. Instead, one commissioner told me recently that he was in favor of cutting funding for Leonardo's this year, and that if we didn't want further cuts next year, we should come up with a better reason than scholarships. So I'm confused. Are we required to give it all back or not? And why is Leonardo's the only organization held to that standard? Either I or one of the Leonardo's board members have made an effort to talk to each of you commissioners in the last few weeks. Thank you to those of you who were willing to take our calls. One commissioner emailed me that he didn't need to meet or talk to me because his mind was already made up, and that tonight's public hearing was meaningless anyway, as everything had already been decided. Two commissioners indicated to me that the reason Leonardo's is being cut is because we submitted and were approved for a CDBG grant in the same amount. And we all know that CDBG is federal funding, not City of Enid funding, and that it must be used for very specific purposes. That particular grant application was for restroom renovations, the cost of which is estimated to exceed $100,000 for first floor restrooms alone. Before I even began that lengthy grant process, I met with the city CDBG administrator, and I was assured by both her and her supervisor that not only does Leonardo's qualify for the grant, but that there isn't a conflict since we applied for public facilities in the low-income area. Leonardo's should not be punished for seeking grants. Another commissioner asked, what difference does it make if a few more people visit anyway? Actually, that's a very good question. It costs between $1,500 and $1,600 a day just to keep our doors open, whether anyone visits or not. That includes facility maintenance, insurance, staffing, utilities, marketing, and supplies. So there is an actual cost that can be attached to each guest. And if those guests get to come in free, then we have to seek funding elsewhere. Leonardo's brings in about 60% of our annual operating budget through our various revenue streams: admissions, memberships, camps, birthday parties, and gift shop. That 60% is above the national average for Children's Museum, even in much larger cities. Someone suggested increasing fees. Fees have been increased in all categories at least once in the last 5 years, while we struggle to manage rising costs, yet remain affordable for local families. The other 40% of our funds every year come in through grants and donations. In short, your funding helps us keep our doors open, which in turn allows us to reach out to those low-income children and families who need it most. At this critical time, while our organization is involved in a capital campaign to completely renovate and expand the museum, any decrease in funding from our city could potentially have far-reaching effects. We are approaching statewide and national foundations and corporations to help us plan for the future, and most of them will ask for a list of donors. In fact, our most recent audit, just like all the ones before it, said that if we were to lose funding from the City of Enid, any funding, it would seriously impair our ability to continue. I ask you, no, I beg you, to reconsider the proposal on the table to cut Leonardo's general funding for this year. That $20,000, a mere 0.00001% of your overall budget, is nothing but decimal dust to you. But it means everything to Leonardo's and the children and families we serve.
Thank you. next speaker will be Trent Mishak. Trent? Give us your name and address, please.
Okay. My name is Trent Mishak, and I currently reside at the University of Northern Oklahoma College and also work at 200 East Maple. I am currently the marketing intern at Leonardo's Discovery Warehouse and a part of the Summer Enid Achievers Program through the Enid Regional Development Alliance. Even though I began working at the Children's Museum last week, I have learned so much about the strong work effort and dedication that goes into running a facility to serve the community of Enid and surrounding areas. I grew up in Medford, Oklahoma, and visited Leonardo's numerous times for school field trips and family trips. My father even came to volunteer his time to help build Adventure Quest. Today, I attended a luncheon for all the summer interns and learned about the growth of Enid. Leonardo's is also continuing to grow and change. There are many new exhibits compared to when I visited a mere 10 years ago. Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." You see, Leonardo's is lighting a spark in the minds of children and getting them interested in education. The other day, as I was walking to my car, I heard a young girl who had been to one of our summer camps telling her mom about her experience and what she learned about the different rocks, types, and how they were formed. By supporting Leonardo's, you are helping children like this little girl to gain interest and learn about new things instead of spending their time in front of a television. Leonardo's is a place where individuals come together to work as a team to provide a place for families to bring their children to learn while also having a good time. Daily, staff members are going out of their way to help guests and the museum as a whole. I never knew how much money and effort it takes to run a place like Leonardo's, but I've been able to learn a little, and it's only my second week on the job. The staff works diligently to raise funds for the museum so they can keep it running and provide opportunities for the children of Enid, such as camps and scholarships for families who need assistance. They don't sit around waiting for money, but they put forth the effort to raise the money to keep this educational facility running at a high standard. Leonardo should be recognized for their excellent work in the community and not be shortened. Thank you.
Thank you. Gil Phillips will be the next.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jill Phillips. I reside at 1401 Oak Hill Circle here in Enid. It is my honor to speak to you tonight on behalf of my passion, which is Leonardo's. And I've got my son Parks here tonight, who's an avid Leonardo's attender to cheerlead the cause this evening. It is my privilege to serve as the board chair for Leonardo's. And I implore you to vote to continue the $20,000 grant that we have so desperately and needfully asked for. Julie has succinctly said the statistics and the reasons why that's more than appropriate. So I'm going to try to leave you with two thoughts about what's in it for us, what's in it for you. What's in it for us? The $20,000 means more than I can express. When we get a private donation of that magnitude, we are doing backflips over Adventure Quest. That's how much it means. We are currently, as Julie expressed, in the middle of a capital campaign, which is a thing that we're pursuing very ardently, but it is a multi-year, multi-million-dollar endeavor that we're engaging in. And most of the folks and donors that we are asking to help out with that are mostly locals, and the reason is because the distance from the heart to the wallet seems like the further we get from those two things, the harder it is to raise those funds. So all of those funds are designated for future use to do amazing renovations to the buildings and the exhibits. And if you haven't seen renderings of those things, I encourage you to do so, and you'll be every bit as passionate about this subject as I am. So in the meantime, we do have to keep our facilities up and running, and it is very difficult to go back to these same generous folks and say, we also need money for operations. We have this wonderful plan that we're going to see to fruition, but we also have to keep going. That's where you all come in, and that's why this $20,000 is so very important, to keep supporting our children through scholarships, which we otherwise would have difficulty doing, and providing services that go along with those things. So that's the main things right now that's in it for us, and what is in it for you? Certainly, I feel like we're a very big part of the downtown plan. You all have a wonderful crown jewel that's just now up and running that I see nothing but great things for. But if you all are the crown jewel, we're the castle to the north. And we support each other. As Julie said, we have at least 90,000 visitors that go through every year that are going to come to your event center, that's going to spend money shopping, eating, doing all of those things. So it's a nice fit. And of all the facts that Julie has said that hit me the strongest when we look at it is this is literally 1/10,000th of 1% of your budget, which is nothing you're going to lose sleep over tonight. It means everything to us and our children. So I urge you to strongly consider a vote for keeping those funds in place, and I thank you for this opportunity to champion this cause this evening.
Thank you. The next person signed up, is it Judy or Julie Kokajon? Help me with your first name.
Judy. Judy.
Judy? Okay.
As president of First Senior Ambucks, I just wanted to thank the city commissioner, the mayor, the commissioners for allocating the funds for a new roof and repairs to the Santa Fe depot. We're truly, truly grateful. So, thank you.
Thank you. Last name is Kitchens. Help me with the first name. You said your name and...
Hi, my name's Shelley Kitchens. I can't add any more than what Julie and the others have already said, other than I and my daughter Danica are one of those low-income families that depend on Leonardo's and the scholarships. Wow. And my daughter, through no fault of her own, wasn't able to be around children when she was younger. I was critically ill when she was born. Leonardo's has made this child blossom in ways that no other place could have. They welcome her. They treat her with respect. They treat all the children with respect. And the volunteers there, they blow my mind. They come and they do this for nothing. I can't do that. I don't have the tolerance. I don't have the patience. And they do. And this is where children need to be to learn. They're not going there to color every day. They're not going there to play every day. They're going there to learn and play. And my daughter, you just have to know her. She was so shy. She wouldn't walk out from behind me her first day at Leonardo's. Her second day, her second week, she can get on a stage now. And Leonardo's deserves the support from this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ask if there's anybody else doing the budget.
Anyone else want to speak to the budget, item 6.1?
They wrote things like street paint or streets.
I apologize. I was out of town dealing with DHS, so I did not get to sign up. I'm Dan Buckley. I'm the Executive Director of Youth and Family Services. And I really don't have time, you all don't have time for me to go through all of the services that we provide, but I would invite you all out, come take a tour. We're very proud of what we do. Let me dispel some myths. We are a nonprofit. We are not a lockdown facility. Some people believe that we are. We're not a detention center. And believe it or not, we don't receive any money from DHS. We're not DHS. We don't receive any funds from them. What we do and what we have done since 1974 is provide residential, safe, nurturing environment for youth, particularly runaways, at risk, abandoned, neglected, abused children. We're also a counseling agency, and we take care of those youth regardless of anybody's ability to pay. We see all youth. We provide meals, clean beds. We drive them to school, pick them up from school. We help with homework. We even drive them to work if they're employed. All of our employees are specially trained, particularly in trauma-informed care. We deal with a lot of kids in trauma. Although a majority of our clients in our shelter are DHS foster care, they're awaiting foster care. Most of you all know that the foster care system is a little crowded right now. They're missing 3,000 beds in the state. So we do have a number of state custody children. We also take parental placements and even police placements. And our second highest referral source happens to be other counseling agencies. So when a family's in crisis, a teenager upset, et cetera, they often use us as a 24-hour to 72-hour cooling off place. So the teenager comes in, the family can cool off. If they're working with a counselor, she can come in. If they don't have one, we can provide one. A couple examples just in the past 3 weeks. A 17-year-old young man from Texas was picked up by the Enid Police Department. They brought him to us. He had no relatives in town. He had a ride to Enid. He did not have a ride out. We naturally called DHS. DHS really couldn't do much for him. Okay, he's a resident of Texas. He has no relatives here. He stayed with us for 8 days, 8 nights. Okay, we housed and fed him. And 17 years old, you can imagine how much he ate. We even clothed him to some extent. And we're the ones who made all the telephone calls to the relatives and finally found him a ride out of state. And kind of, I wish Chief O'Rourke was here, but, He is? Okay. I'm sure he doesn't want to pay for one of his police officers to have to babysit a 17-year-old trying to find a way out of here, okay? Second example happened just this week. Again, the Enid police responded to a family in crisis. Again, a teenager and a mom, both of them mad at each other, very upset. The police officer suggested our place as a cooling off period for the teenager, which he agreed to. And so they're in a 48-hour, allowing them to not have a family crisis. And this goes a long ways to avoiding abuse, neglect. Unfortunately, we hear too much about, parents that get too angry or even kids that get too angry. So we provide, we believe, a very good service. I have some pamphlets I'd like to leave with you. I also have a letter from Judge Pickens who says that she uses us in the municipal court for offending youth. We have a first-time offenders program. So all the youth and their parents go through this. We're talking 60 to 75 youth per year. This program happens to have a statewide non-offender, non-reoffender rate of 92%. Okay, very successful. The charge to the families is nothing. The charge to the city, even though we provide staff to Judge Pickens, is nothing. Okay, so for the price of the shelter, the $7,000 that was in the budget that's now down to $5,000, you're getting quite a bit. In closing, I did call a couple of other area youth services. Just to give you an example, the closest other ones are Ponca City and Stillwater. Both of those cities allocate $15,000 to their shelters. El Reno receives $15,000 combined from El Reno, Mustang, and Yukon. They also receive $22,000 from their county. Okay, so just kind of taking a look around, it's we're kind of the low man on the totem pole. And if I go a little further south, and since you all are sitting down, the city of Edmond provides $137,000 to their youth service. Okay, so I encourage you. Hopefully, somebody will take the ball and visit with Edmond. They do provide quite a few more services than we do for you guys and the shelter, and but we do provide a 24/7 hotline for youth. And kind of as a final note, and this is totally off the budget, but I'll throw it in there, we are the only licensed foster care agency in the city, in the county. And last time that DHS awarded foster care contracts, it went to a company out of Lawrence, Kansas. So hopefully we'll get some support from you guys as we are bidding on new contracts for that as well. So if I may leave this with somebody to pass around.
Thank you. Do what? Are you allowed to comment?
You can ask a question.
You can ask a question. Basically, we're here to listen. We can get to that one, to the budget. The next one signed up for 6.1, Bob Berry.
Berry, 702 North Imo Road. We were 80 miles away from a 100-year event in Enid. By some lucky chance, the poor city of Moore got it again in Oklahoma City. We're more than 10 years past due from a 100-year event actuarially. When we do, it will be worse than 1973 because in spite of all the efforts, nothing is actually systemically complete in stormwater. We have 3 more days of flash flooding warning, so it's kind of a convenient time to talk about this. I'm specifically speaking about Fund 43-435, the Stormwater Fund. Presently, as you may or may not know, the entire stormwater system is based on this report by McLaughlin. All of these stormwater facilities, except the one on North Garland, are in this. The reason the North Garland facility is in it is because McLaughlin made a mistake on where their water drains to. The back 4 pages of this study is the priority. The priorities were listed in 3 different ways. However, the detention facilities are interesting because the number 1 facility in every single way that you can do the priorities, these were done by your consultants, was Rolling Oaks. And number 2 was the South Garland facility south of Walmart. Number 3 was the Cherokee Detention Facility, and unmentioned was Garland North. When you started the projects of doing these, it was discovered that the Garland North facility was integral to the construction of Walmart, Atwoods, and your intersection at Garriott and Garland. And I'll read you a little something. When you did that, this is the plans for that intersection. The city of Enid wrote in addendum number 1, the city will construct an upstream detention facility which will eliminate the need for most of the additional capacity provided by the 2 7 foot by 3 foot by 133 foot precast reinforced concrete box. Therefore, these structures and all related work will be deleted from the project, meaning that the drainage underneath Garriott Road was reduced by a huge percent because you were going to build this detention. The detention is not operable because you didn't do the outflow structure. Therefore, ONG, Atwoods, and about half a block of houses in the Cherokee addition immediately north of ONG now flood, even in a 50-year event, probably. We have a little difficulty in figuring it out, but we know for a 100-year event for sure. I realize most of you know that we have property south of Garriott. None of this really affects us. But the other one that also affects the people up here is the Cherokee Detention Facility, which has barely been built, although you've spent a huge amount of money putting the pumps and the discharge structure in. The problem is the hole isn't dug, and you've only purchased half the land. 100% of both of these facilities that I'm talking about are fully developed upstream. So there's a ton of water coming down. Garriott Road acts like a big dam. And so Courtright Honda, kissing goodbye. Western Sizzlin, A.E. Howard, Holiday Inn Express, all of them are now in the 100-year floodplain. But since FEMA hasn't mapped it, they don't know it. Now, they're going to find out about it, but these are the items that were cut from the budget to be replaced by two facilities at the far northwest part of town, by the way, which we do own a bunch of land in. These facilities, while on the McLaughlin study, are not functional because it's a big wheat field, and by the way, you own the wheat field. In addition to the detention facilities, Prairie View School has detained its own water at great expense. The chance to get Prairie View to contribute to the city project was lost when Prairie View was built, and this wasn't worked out. And so what's happening is that there will be no water stored in these facilities because the pipe coming out lets out the pre-development flow, meaning the wheat field. And until you have buildings there, there is no excess flow. So what's happened is, in this Ouija board of projects, taking the engineers out of the decision-making and the priorities that have been made, the city has actually exacerbated the flooding of a lot of people. And almost none of these people know they're in the 100-year floodplain. And I would encourage you to rethink your drainage projects. Please don't do anything for me, but you're going to have some issues with some of these people, and it's going to be dramatic. And if we have a big rain, the buck stops there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else wishing to speak regarding the budget? No one else has signed up, so we will proceed. Item 7, community development. There were none that signed up. Under item 8, administration. Item 8.1, consider adopting an ordinance amending Title 5, Chapter 1, Section 1 of the Enid Municipal Code to authorize an increase of 5 patrolman positions for the Enid Police Department.
Mayor and Commissioners, as you said, this is a proposal to amend 5-1-1. Currently, you get this thing to work? Right there? Okay, thanks. Currently, we're allotted 69 patrol officers for the police department. We are proposing an increase of 5 officers, which would change the ordinance to 74 patrolmen. The reason for this, the reason we're asking for this increase is the downtown event center. We have to come up with operations to patrol that area. We see an increase of traffic down in that area. Of course, the new walking trail. We went out yesterday to look at a UTV for patrolling that area. That's going to increase our manpower obligation. Our call for services from 2002 to the current have increased approximately 30,000 calls that our officers are responding to. Oil field services, the increase of traffic on our roadways, takes those extra officers to patrol that. And of course, all the events we have downtown taxes our manpower with the 5K runs, the parades. And finally, with the attrition of an officer, anytime we lose an officer, we are looking at an 18-month span to get somebody hired, trained, and back on the street. With the oil field and railroad and Coke Industries, that's taken some of our officers, and we're still in that rebuilding process. So we're asking your vote tonight to increase our number of manning from 69 to 74.
I'll make a motion to adopt that ordinance amending the...
Motion by Mike. Second by Tammy.
Yeah.
Further discussion, questions, comments? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Under item 8.2, consider approving an agreement with Archer Daniels Midland Company, Decatur, Illinois, to lay, maintain, and operate a 2-inch drainage line within the City of Enid right-of-way. Chris?
Thank you. What the agreement is to do is they're wanting to install a 2-inch drain line. It's a trickle drain underneath 16th Street to allow the discharge water to go to the east side of the road and get into the stormwater drain. They're doing some remediation at the site. One of the byproducts is groundwater, and they do have a DEQ permit to discharge. It's our recommendation that you approve this agreement.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Motion by Ron, second by Ben. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item 8.3, consider awarding a contract to CP3 Enterprises, Inc., Maud, Oklahoma, for construction of the Enid Woodring Regional Airport Detention Facility, Project F-1104B, and authorize the mayor to execute all contract documents after review by the city attorney. Chris?
Yes, this is a stormwater detention facility that we need to build out at Woodring Airport. That's a part of the runway extension. You can see here the area in red is where the detention facility will be constructed. We did a competitive bid. The numbers that you see on the agenda item are those numbers. They're also in your canvas of bids. We did find that CP3 provided us the lowest and responsive bid, and we recommend that you award the contract to CP3 and we execute.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Tammy. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item 8.4, consider approving change order number 2 with NOAC, is that the right pronunciation? NOAC Construction Company, Goddard, Kansas, and accept the emergency 20-inch water line replacement from 54th Street to 78th Street, project W-1302A. Chris?
Thank you, sir. This project was awarded to NOAC Construction out of Kansas to replace the 20-inch water line that was giving us all the fits back into January and December. They bid the work, and the award price was approximately $1.8 million. After change order number 2, which was to reduce the size and to reduce the quantities installed, we did a deduct of approximately $180K. We're recommending that you accept this project as complete and approve the change order, and that would put us in our 3-year maintenance warranty cycle.
Chris, this is 100% complete. We're all done?
We are all done, sir.
And water's back up and running through. Any issues? And their performance on this project?
I was very impressed with their performance on this. This was one that we had to put together very quickly. And we started in January, and here it is June, and they're gone.
Well, honestly, I was surprised that it's already done, but that's good, and we didn't have any issues. Good.
And $180,000 under budget.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mike, a second by Tammy. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Thanks, Chris. Pardon me?
Said some things coming under budget.
Item 8.5, discuss and take necessary action on the fiscal year 2013-2014 City of Enid budget. Gerald?
Yes, Mayor and Commissioners, we've been going a while, about a month on the budget. Got a few slides to talk about tonight, as well as the EPTA budget, and then questions. Budget summary, you got a new draft on Friday that rolled up all the changes that we've discussed previously, and we'll line item some of those here in a minute. Hopefully with tonight's input and what we receive, I guess in the next few days, we will wrap up a final revision here real soon. I anticipate by next week. to send to you that we will come back on the 18th with resolutions for to ask you to approve. Tonight, of course, we just had the public hearing. And we've already talked about that. Approved changes, I just want to cover these again. I think the city manager had forwarded you an email that had these too. You guys did vote to increase the sales tax projection or budget item by 5%, so we've included that. We did hear you loud and clear on trails. We have increased that from $600,000 to $2 million in the capital improvement fund. We also added $750,000 for playground equipment in the general fund capital replacement. And we did cut the master transportation plan to help fund some of these items. The local program funding, just to show again what you guys had approved previously with a vote you took on these items. You can see the funding levels for those items and for those items. I think what we probably want to do now is cover EPTA, and then I know you probably want to discuss the budget and maybe ask some specific questions. You'll remember when we presented the EPTA budget earlier, we told you there were going to be some changes coming. James Neal, who is the new director out there, has made some significant changes, and he would like to present those changes. They're on page 78, starting on page 78 in your budget draft. Do you have the file we sent you Friday? Okay, James, do you want to come up and walk them through that?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to come back before you and talk about some of the changes we're putting in place at EPTA and how that will affect our upcoming fiscal year and where it will leave us positioned for the following fiscal year as we make some decisions about the future of public transportation in Enid. The big picture, which you all saw when we presented the original draft of the budget, was that we were projecting a $351,000 deficit, which would take us to a negative fund balance of $146,350. I was not recommending following that course. I don't think any of you were interested in following that course. So we're putting in some system changes in order to operate more within our means, to be more efficient, and to also be more responsive to the public's needs. We talked before about the city's fixed route system. We've been going down that course for more than 6 years now, and it has taken more resources than we have available to keep it operating. It has been largely inefficient due to the fact that our ridership never reached the level that we predicted it would back when we implemented it in 2007. What we're looking, I'm going to get into some more specifics about what our system changes will be, but the proposed system changes that we're looking at will cut our spending by $230,000, while our total revenue also decreases by $31,000. We're increasing our organic revenue. That's dominantly fair revenue and local contracts. But our grant revenue is decreasing faster than we can increase our organic revenue. So we're taking a net decrease of $31,000 in our revenue for a projected deficit of $152,000. And what that cut, it's still a very sizable deficit, and definitely not where I would want to be in the future. But what that does is it gets our fund balance back into the positive. It gets us through this fiscal year to finish with a positive fund balance of $53,000. So in essence, we have a year with enough equity to cover our operations, to make some more changes, and come back at this time next year and review where we are, how we've been operating, how things have turned out, and where you all would like to see us go after that. And again, we're here because our grant revenue has been decreasing faster than we can cut our costs. We have about 6 years of operational inertia to come, and we just started changing course about a month ago. The current operation schedule, I think you're all very familiar with. We had 3 fixed routes with complementary demand response. Essentially what that means is you have 2 different sets of the same type of vehicle doing parallel services in town when you could use the same vehicle to perform both services, and that's where we're going with our system changes. We also had out-of-town service and a peak route, which have been suspended simply because we didn't have the personnel or the resources to fulfill them. The big thing with our fixed route system as it has been operating, as it's designed to operate, is it requires 467 driver hours per week to keep that running. That's not operational overhead, that's not our administrative staff, that's just drivers in the seat, 467 hours per week. What we're looking to do to cut down on our costs is decrease some of that redundancy I talked about, increase our efficiency. We do that by transitioning to a curb-to-curb demand response system and eliminating the fixed service. This is not a reduction in service, it is matching our service with the demand. In essence, it is more of a service to the community because we'll be broadening our reach to the entire community, not just along the narrow corridors of the fixed route system. And it's also curb to curb. So it eliminates the need for people and the inherent safety risks of having people standing, waiting at some of our bus stops. We also cut our operating hours to 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday. This is typical for what you would see a system our size across the state. And we dispatch only between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Anything outside of those hours would have to be preset. We increased the general ridership fare to $2 per trip. On the fixed route, it was $1. We're increasing our service by going curb to curb and increasing our reach in the community. Increased service leads to an increase in fare, but that is not above what we were charging for this service back in 2007. The net effect of all of those changes is that we decrease our driver hours from 467 hours a week to 280, which is what gets us $187,000 savings in personnel costs. That doesn't represent cutting any jobs. That's simply cutting our part-time staff from almost full-time hours down to a more traditional part-time schedule of 20 to 24 hours per week. We're putting fewer wheels for less time on the road each week, so that we'll also see a corresponding reduction in our fuel costs of $43,000. We have more room to grow in our efficiency. One of the ways we're going to capture that is by implementing some technology upgrades. The city's IT department already has the knowledge, the know-how, and knows where to get the equipment to get us set up with automated dispatching. We already own the most expensive part of that, which is the software. This will cut down on our administrative overhead, the time it takes to dispatch, and the time it takes for us to operate the system. All of these upgrades together eliminate the need for one part-time dispatcher position. Again, that's not cutting a position that prevents us from having to add a position as we increase ridership. So the total cost of implementing these would be $7,500 one time, and that'll save you approximately $17,000 every year in not having to add that extra dispatch position. As I said, we still have room to grow in our efficiency. The current budget's built on our current fleet composition, which, as you know, is predominantly large buses, which get about 8 miles to the gallon. We have 3 minivans. We have room in the future to attain a more balanced mix of buses and minivans, but we have to budget based on what we have right now. It takes significant time to achieve a significant fleet composition change because essentially we don't own those vehicles. Those are all owned by, or at least have liens against them by the grant agency that funded the purchase. So there's quite a bit of administrative work that goes into changing our fleet composition, but there is a more efficient mix out there of buses and minivans, essentially reducing our buses and increasing our minivans to reduce our future fuel and maintenance costs and improve our response times and flexibility to the public. Those are the changes we have. That's where we're going. I think you have the budget in front of you. You can see where we are. And like I said, this budget will get us through this year and keep us operating within our equity so that we can continue to make some more changes and see where we are and where you want to go a year from now. Any questions for me?
Well, I'd like to thank you, James, for going through this big change. You kind of jumped right into this. I mean, how is this? Are we 2 months in now?
Not quite.
Not quite 2 months in. So thank you for undertaking this big project all of a sudden.
Thank you.
James, could you go back to the hours, change in hours? It's a little confusing to me. You've got there, the operating hours are going to be from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. The dispatch time is only 5 to 8.
8 to 5, yes, sir.
8 to 5, I mean,
Ahead.
When we had a demand response system in the past, we had dispatch there anytime we had a bus on the road. So, and we were running until 11 o'clock at night. In order to help keep our manpower costs down, we have to have a dispatcher there to dispatch rides to match the rides with the assets. But we can preset rides. In other words, if you're going to ride before 8 a.m., so say you're riding between 6 and 8, you would have to schedule that ride with dispatch the day before, so before 4:30 the previous business day. If you're going to ride between 5 and 7, you would have to schedule that ride and your return trip with dispatch during regular business hours, so before 4:30 that business day.
Assuming you get the,
maybe I'm dense, but what are they going to do between 5 and 7?
They schedule the ride during business hours. So if you know you're going to have a ride at 6:30 this evening, you need to get home from work, you would call before 4:30 and schedule that ride, and then we would show up and pick you up.
The drivers would already have the schedule of who they were supposed to pick up from 5 to 7.
Dispatch would receive that, they would put it into the computer, they would dispatch it to the driver's computer once we get the automated system in place. Right now, it's dispatched by radio, and they write it down on their paper logs.
So actually, they are there later than 5 then?
No, sir. We cut off the presets at 4:30, and by 5 o'clock, they've turned those around and dispatched them.
The drivers are, but not the dispatchers.
so you have to schedule your ride ahead of time.
By 4:30.
Right.
If you're riding outside of the 8 to 5 window.
Anyway, that's,
So does this automated system that you want to shoot for, it's not automated to the degree of at 6 o'clock, if I know I need a ride in half an hour, I can text it in. It's not like that. It's just,
We're not to that level.
Okay.
We are working on an automated ride request, an app, where you have a phone app, and again, IT is already good at putting this in place. But it doesn't automatically feed through to the driver's computer. You still have to have it.
the
It goes
dispatcher.
to dispatch, and then dispatch has to send it out to a driver.
okay.
So if you have no previous, before 4:30 to 7, they go ahead and go home at 5 o'clock?
That's correct. If we have no preset trips, we can go ahead and knock that driver off early.
Release is probably a better term.
Saving,
Release, yeah, sorry, as an old Navy, it's a Navy term.
saving us money.
Yes.
Which is imperative right now. I mean, to try and stop the bleeding, we can work on making it, a lot more user-friendly to those people who might ride there, but if we don't have a system in 2 years, then it's not going to do anybody any good.
Sure. And, I'm not entirely opposed. I mean, this system, in my mind, does not have to be 100% self-sufficient. I mean, we're providing a service to those of our citizens that have some need for it. I appreciate that you're shooting for, at, some point in the future, being 100% kind of self-sufficient system or within some
Within our
closer
means.
bounds. But, I think it's worth noting that this is a service, and if the city from the general fund has to kick in a little bit, that's not the end of the world. We're helping people who really need it.
And I think I can bring these back if you like. There are numerous studies that show when cities invest in public transportation, you get significant indirect benefits in return because you're moving people to work, you're moving them to shopping to spend money, you're moving them to medical appointments, that's more money.
Sure.
It feeds money into the economy, but it's an indirect benefit. It's not something you see directly back. What I want is to get us to a more efficient operating system so that you see a better return on the city's investment.
Thank you.
And in this budget, the city is contributing $120,000.
Sure.
To
I
keep
just
this running.
mean it's clear that James would at some point in the future like to be mostly or close to. That's kind of what I'm getting from you.
Yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for what you're doing. Do we need a motion on that? Okay. Gerald?
Yes, that was what we wanted to present to you tonight, so the rest of the time, we can answer your questions. You guys can discuss the budget.
Answer any questions about the budget?
Well, because I have backup, I'm safe in saying
Okay, so can you tell me, year before last, how much did Leonardo's get the year before last?
Leonardo's in the last year received $45,000.
And the year before that?
They got $45,000 the year before.
And what are we proposing this year?
This year, they would get $20,000 from the general fund, or 25,000 from the general fund and 20,000 from CDBG.
Which totals?
45,000.
So where's the cut? How are they getting less this year than they got last year or the year before that?
The total amount they would receive with the current budget would be
Is the same.
Wait a minute. In the current budget, but 2013, 2014 is 20.
Well,
It's the same
current
amount of
proposed
money
budget-
coming from two sources.
Wait a minute, one at a time. Doesn't matter who.
Okay,
Tammy?
it's the same amount of money, it's coming from different sources. It's the same amount of money that they got last year and the year before that. So the characterization that we're cutting them off at their knees is not accurate.
Actually, it
They're
looks-
getting the same amount of
It
money.
looks like it's identical to what we did in 2011, 2012, in that we allocated $25,000 from the general fund and $20,000 from CDBG, which is exactly what we're doing, or what we're proposing for 13, 14. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's my point.
Is that grant a hit and miss deal as far as you apply for it, you know if you're going to get it for sure? Or?
They've already been approved, and it's already been allocated with the new CDBG funds that come in the fall with the new federal fiscal year.
What I see is $25,000 on the top line.
Yeah, and then down below,
There's also another,
Help me. Oh,
CDBG.
and that money is earmarked for
Yes.
Vegas,
Leonardo's.
Leonardo's? And what was it last year?
Last year, I don't know that they got any CDBG funds. The year before that, they got $20,000 in CDBG
the
funds.
same amount.
It's the same amount of money, it just was funded differently.
Is the money going to Leonardo's for operations or for scholarships?
Well, how they use it, I think, may be different, and they could probably speak to it better about that. I think the CDBG funds they intend to use for renovations that they talked about.
My understanding.
That was, we approved it for the bathrooms. But I assume that the CDBG funding that they received in the 2011, 2012 fiscal year was likewise allocated for a specific
I
project.
think that was.
It would have had to be, I think. Sure, a different project, but specifically allocated.
Public services, not public facilities. And at that time, the commission decided, because both of those were pretty much the same, because it was still going to scholarships, that 20,000 2 years ago had to be used for free family memberships. And that was a one-time thing, and we have continued those memberships. This is for public facilities. That's why the CDBG staff said there was not a conflict this year. It was in no way, shape, or form the same. It has to be used for bathrooms.
Are you talking about the $20,000?
The CDBG grant was. for
Okay, but what about the money that the city's got?
The city funding is always given back, because that's what we have been told, that we have to give it back through scholarships.
It doesn't necessarily have to be scholarships, it has to be used for a public purpose.
Yeah, my understanding is by state law, we're not able to give a donation to a private organization for operating funds. We just can't do it.
Are you telling me that Leonardo's will receive a sum of $45,000 this year?
Yes, a combined sum of $45,000 in the current proposed.
Last year, they received $45,000 from a different angle,
Yes,
angles.
yes, it came from the general fund last year. $45,000 came from the general fund last year. The year before, $25,000 came from the general fund, $20,000 for what Julie just talked about.
I'm looking at it.
This year, what's proposed is the $25,000 from the general fund and $20,000 from CDBG for those restroom renovations.
I think anybody is, I mean, nobody's against Leonardo's. Everybody thinks it's a great asset. It comes down to you've got infinite requests and a finite amount of money, and it comes down to how we divvy that up. by Julie's numbers, if we've got 90,000 visitors per year approximately, and let's say 340 days per year open, that averages to about 265 people per day. I think the $1,500 or so per day overhead equals $5.66 per person. Why does that have to be a dollar amount of scholarships? Why can you not just give them a free pass for that day? Why does that require money? I've asked this question probably a dozen times. I've never gotten an answer on why does it need $20,000 from the city to fund that?
I don't know. Do you want Julie to come respond?
If that would be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you. That's what I was talking about in the cost attached, and I appreciate that you have asked that question. There are certain things that in our, we're required to have a contract with the city. 10,000 of the money that you give us goes to pay half of our network fee to be part of the Oklahoma Museum Network. The rest of it is for very specific things. There's a certain amount that's designated for camp scholarships, like the mother of the little girl that was here tonight. We always far exceed what that amount is. We have other free art classes at different times, different days throughout the year, and we do something like 12,000 free visits a year. Those are individual free visits, which we provide some to the city of Enid. They just tell us when they need more. For employees, we provide a whole lot to the visitor center that they give away, and then we also give those to any other nonprofit that asks us. So we give away a lot of those. We provide weekly visits during the summer for groups that are working with what would be termed at-risk children, like the Booker T. Washington Center and the YWCA Shelter, Sandbox Learning, Zoe Bible Kids Cafe. They come there for either free or a very reduced rate, and while they're there, they have an art or science class. We provide free visits for those elementary schools in Enid that are in the low to moderate income tract. That's Adams, Garfield, and Coolidge. Other Title I schools in Enid get a very reduced rate. So you add all that up, then of course when they come in, we have to have supplies, utilities, staffing, we have to be insured, all of those things. That's where we get that $1,500 to $1,600 a day.
You're already staffed, the lights are already on. I mean, so you don't have additional cost for a child to walk in that door that day, except for materials they may use in the craft room. Is that correct?
That's what I'm saying, is that there is a cost there, and either the guest pays it or we have to go get that from somewhere else, because there is a cost attached. When that child comes in, we don't say, oh no, since you're free, you can't build anything in the wood shop. Since you're free, you can't paint a picture in the art studio. There is a significant cost attached to every person that walks in the door. And we feel like we're very diligent, very thrifty with the city's money, and then we turn around and offer that to those that can't afford it. There is a cost there. If we let everybody in free, the doors would close. We couldn't do that. And it sounds in theory like, what's the big deal if one more comes in? Well, the big deal is 20,000 came in last year, free. That's the amount that were impacted. And they all have the documentation to show that they need that help. We use the HUD guidelines, whether it's a CDBG grant or not. We use the HUD guidelines, and anybody that meets that standard, we do not turn them away. But it costs money to do all that.
The CDBG grant, is that coming from the city of Enid or flowing through
That's
the federal
HUD
government?
funding. It'll come through the city of Enid as an entitlement city. That funding from the federal government has to go through an entitlement city, but it can only go to certain things. And that's why, because we went through this 2 years ago, And the city manager insisted that it was the same thing, it was double dipping. And so we agreed for that time only, because it was also for scholarships, that we would take $25,000 on the other side. And we gave away far more than the 186 free family memberships that grant paid for. And then since then, if they still qualify, as according to our grant proposal, they still get a scholarship at half price then. And so we continue these things, but I will not write another grant for public services. I know that is very limited, but it was your CDBG administrator that said, you need to go for public facilities with this capital campaign, your bathrooms, that's a public facility, and you qualify under the guidelines of HUD. So I did. That's a one-time fee for bathrooms, even though when we do bathrooms on all 3 floors, my grant proposal just for bathrooms in the renovation is $358,000. So just for the first floor bathrooms, and that's what we're planning to do this year when and if that money from HUD arrives, then that's going to be more than $100,000. So Leonardo's will be paying $80,000 of it, and that CDBG grant will pay $20,000. But it can't go to help these people over here that still have those needs and those children that still deserve to get to come to Leonardo's.
Gerald, can we move that 20,000 from CDBG?
You can't move it from CDBG, but if you wish to change what you've already done, I mean, you guys tell us what you want the budget to be.
Well, my question is just, at what point do you stop just giving stuff away that you don't have? I mean, like Mike used the term earlier, stop the bleeding. I mean, if you don't have it, don't give it away. I mean, you got to quit giving it away at some point. And I know that there were a lot of comments made about certain things that different commissioners said, but there were also a lot of comments made by commissioners, because I know that I made the comment that I think Leonardo's is a very worthy asset to our community and that I value it greatly. And I've personally offered to help do a fundraiser for Leonardo's. So I don't think that was been a very fair picture of how this has been done, and I don't think it's fair to characterize it as a punishment, because we have a list of a lot of very worthy organizations in town. It's not a punishment, but when we cut people, I mean, I liken it to paying your neighbor's bills versus paying your own bills. There are a whole lot of city things that have been neglected and ignored because we've been paying everybody else's bills. And there's a point where we've got to stop paying everybody else's bills and take care of some of our own stuff for a little bit. It's not a punishment to anybody.
It's also worth noting that I understand that this $20,000 is, in the scale of the entire budget, a relatively small percentage, but this is a non-core city function. This is not our streets or our parks or our sewer or our water. This is money coming from a fairly narrow sliver that we divvy out to local programs. And within that very, very, very narrow sliver, we had to prioritize those organizations for this year. We all love Leonardo's. And for everyone sitting out there, I'm thrilled that Leonardo's is kind of support. And I fully appreciate that Jill and Julie and the other folks from Leonardo's, this is your job to come fight for your money. But we have to make these priorities, we have to prioritize within this very narrow, small sliver of local program fundings. And I hope that this change, in terms of where it comes from, doesn't actually lead to any decrease in scholarships. I know that you folks can make up $20,000. I've got an enormous amount of faith in your ability to fundraise, especially undertaking a $6 million capital campaign. You guys are going to do it, and it's going to be fantastic. So you're getting $45,000 this year, as you did last year, at least in the current proposal. And I look forward to seeing Leonardo's continue to do scholarships and grow.
If we are going to give them $45,000, why can we not drop the CDB funding and?
It's already approved.
The CDBG funding.
I understand, but we could, if you drop that and give them the $20,000, they don't get the $20,000 from CDBG.
CDBG.
And take HUD out of the equation.
CDBG funding you've already approved. I can't really speak to that. Stephanie, I didn't ask her or tell her or request her to be here tonight. She'd be the best one to probably answer. I think changing any CDB allocations would take some action from you guys, as well as changing if you're not happy with the $25,000 out of the general fund.
We approved $1 million from the rainy day fund in probably 3 minutes. We've talked about this for 4 weeks.
Yes,
For over $20,000.
So every year.
28 on the whole thing, youth and Booker T and everything.
Yeah, Mayor,
But my point is, we approved $1 million out of the rainy day fund for the trail system, and I support that.
And that's a core city function. That belongs to the city. That's something that we have to do as the city councils. We have to take care of our infrastructure and our facilities. So it's not the same thing. It's apples and oranges.
You can't just move
That's not our
CDBG
thing.
funds and do.
Mayor, if I might, the CDBG funds have been through a long process of approvals and has been allocated. We got the letter. You received the letter today. CDBG funds have been awarded. The award was actually a little higher than what we had anticipated, which is a good thing because those allocations will actually be apportioned with a little bit higher amount. So you'll actually end up getting more than 20,000, but I couldn't tell you how much that is. Each of those entities will get a little bit more that have been approved. So that's pretty set. That's not to say that it couldn't come back in and have a change, but I think if this board wants to do something different or to change it, it would just be on the city side. That's not to say that CDBG couldn't, but it is a pretty set, already in place, ready to go program.
Well, you guys ponder that a minute. Let me just touch on the other two things that were.
We've pondered it for
I'm ready to
5
move on
weeks.
with it.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
ready to go on to the next step.
Very signed up.
I do have one other item on the budgets that I'd like to propose or make a motion on if you're ready for that.
Hang on just a minute. So you're saying if we give them 20,000 to the 25 to make 45,000, and then they're going to get 20,000 from 20,000 plus from CDBG. So that would be giving them 45,000 plus 20, that'd be giving them $65,000.
Right.
Is my math correct?
If he increased the city side to 45,
No.
and they got the 20 from CDBG, they would get $65,000.
Got it.
Yes.
That is correct.
That's, you're the person that I've heard bring that up, but yes.
Do what?
Yes.
Is that a motion, Mayor? Are you wanting to do that?
My motion would be to add the 20,000 to the 45 and drop the CDBG grant.
So they would still only get 45,000.
That's the 45,000, the same as they got last year, and Lord help us if we can't change that CDB proportion.
You can't change the
You
CDBG here today.
Do what?
You can't change the
I understand.
CDBG here today, but you can change the city.
Can change what?
The city.
City.
In the is the CDBG grant in stone? Cast in stone? Or
It
can
is
we change
approved.
it?
It's been approved by the city commission. A change to that would have to come back to the city commission
On a different agenda.
When?
on a different agenda item on a different day. It can't be done today because it's not on our agenda.
Which would have to be done 2 weeks from today.
Yes.
That would be my motion.
Which, can that be done? Is that,
It's also
is
been
that in
approved by-
time?
Is that
for
legal?
budget?
Is that legal?
It's also what?
It's also been approved by HUD,
Yes, it has.
so it would have to go back before
Yes, it
then,
would.
that there is a change.
And then use it all together.
That would then stall,
Pardon me?
would that then stall the entire distribution for CDBG?
It's possible. Yeah. I mean, there's no way really to know for sure.
My motion would be to add 25,000 back, 20,000 back to the 25,000 by the city, and bring before the city commission in 2 weeks the change to HUD and remove that $20,000 from HUD, they'd be getting $45,000 from the city of Enid this year, the same as last year.
Then let me ask this. If that's to happen, and they get all of their funds from the city instead of any of it from CDBG, then does all of that money have to be specifically used for certain things? And is that gonna screw up what they could use their CDBG money for?
All of the city money would have to be spent on all $45,000 on something that is a proper
So could they
public
use that
function.
$20,000 for their bathrooms still? No, they could not. So that screws them.
They lose their
More
bathroom.
than helps them.
Right, they lose their
Correct?
bathroom.
But they would get the operational costs and the scholarships to Leonardo's.
They don't
As-
really
that's what
get
they're getting today.
operational, they don't really get operational costs. They get grant money for scholarships, I mean, not grant money, but money for scholarships, and they get money for camps.
Money's money.
But they have to use it for certain things.
I agree, I agree.
Yeah.
So if we take away their CDBG money, they don't have that money to use for their bathrooms that they need.
And we've got to find that other $20,000. We've got to pull it from somebody else. So
Then
Youth
somebody
and
else
Family
has to do it.
Services, do we take it from them? I don't think so.
Or,
You guys could decide who
or
wants to.
or let them raise the $20,000 to do the bathrooms. To me, it's broad as it is long.
Well, if the city gives them 45, then we have to take the 20,000
From somewhere
from somebody else.
Where are we getting the 20?
Yeah, because we can't just take the CDBG money and put it in there. We have to take it from either Youth and Family Services or one of the other organizations, Pegasus. You know, we've got to pull it from somewhere.
Is there a motion on the floor at this point?
There is a motion, there's no second.
Is there a second? Hearing none, we stay where we are with the 25,000 and the 20,000, is that correct? From CDBG?
Yes,
25 to the city.
it's correct at this point, yes.
It will,
Two more things I wanted to note real quickly.
okay, and then we have somebody to sign up to speak.
Okay. Pegasus. We talked about Pegasus. I want to remind you that there's $425,000 in funding for Pegasus, the 240 for relocation, the 185, and then the depot is in the budget, the depot roof, which I think was acknowledged. So that 100,000 there is to fix that roof on that building. And that's really all I have. Do you have any other questions?
Help me with the roof.
The depot roof that was discussed by one of the
No,
citizens.
no, no, on the spreadsheet.
It's not on that spreadsheet. It's out of capital improvement.
Okay, okay, okay.
Mayor, I do have something on the budget I'd like to make a motion on, if I may.
Sure.
One of the budgeted items is $50,000 for doing some specialized painting on the railroad bridge on East Main Street. And I would like to make a motion that we reduce that amount to $20,000.
I would second.
Because we have not, based on what we know about this particular project, it's not going to take $50,000. So-
I would second that.
And I would also like to expand the project to looking at other methods of preventing vehicles from striking the.
How about we tell people to quit driving into a dang bridge?
Well, I know. Well, we can do that. That hasn't worked. Anyway, that's my.
Well, we can't legislate stupidity.
Wait a minute. Tell me what your motion is, and we need a second, and then we'll discuss it.
Well, I've already got a second.
I seconded, his motion,
No, wait a minute. Have you got that down? Repeat your motion, please.
My motion is to reduce the amount of $50,000 that's budgeted for the specialized painting on the Main Street Bridge to $20,000.
I seconded it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Now, discussion.
If we're going to be looking at other, I was asking Ron if he would amend that to have that other 30,000 to include possibly some other preventive measures, but he opted not to. But if we're going to be looking at others,
We're gonna have other costs with signs, and if it were up to me, we'd put signs every 3 feet to make sure nobody hits the bridge, because apparently that's, people can't see the big yellow flashing light and the yellow
And the
black
no
stripes and
trucks.
the no trucks and all that, so.
But the thing about it is, we've looked at this, and we've had people study this and talk about it for years, and this is another attempt to solve a problem that, it's just the idea that the solution that we've come up with is not worth
No,
$50,000.
it's, and I don't think that's the cost we got, it's just that it's unknown and it was a placeholder.
That's my motion, Mayor.
Who's going to repaint the bridge when it gets hit again? Is that the city or is that the railroad?
They're gonna pay $20,000, I'll paint it.
Do what?
Okay, Ron and I'll paint it if we fix it.
If we set aside $20,000, it's going to cost $20,000. That next time that bridge gets hit, who pays for it?
No, actually, the full motion was that, that we also use some of this revenue to look at other solutions to preventing trucks from hitting the
I
bridge.
think that my understanding, and I might not be right on this, but I think that our agreement with the railroad would also, that would be a maintenance agreement as well, so does that mean we would have to maintain that? Do you know, Joan?
Yes, it is.
Is that right?
Yes.
Because you've seen, okay.
Yes.
Because, so that also includes a maintenance agreement with the railroad, so
But a
we
paint job ought to last for years.
well, not if it gets hit 47 times like it has been now.
Okay, but so realistically,
We
let's,
have to paint the bridge.
without taking too much joy in the trucks hitting, I mean, occasionally we have to go in and touch up the paint. Is that
Right.
the extent of our maintenance? I feel like that's a pretty
Yes.
minimal.
Right, so we would be responsible for the maintenance of.
Sure, why not?
The bridge has actually held up very well.
It has.
Yes.
It's made of
The
kryptonite.
bridge is a lot tougher than the trucks.
It's been there since
I think we should
1950.
build
is that right?
everything, it's been there since the 30s, I think.
Yeah.
We should build everything out of whatever that bridge is built on.
Should build homes and more out of that.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0.
Mayor, I'd like to make one other motion, if I may, since I'm on a roll here. I would like to add the $2,000 back that we withdrew from the Youth and Family Services budget, because it sounds to me like that we need their services to do a lot of the things that we do as a city and that the police department does, and that we're getting more than $5,000 worth of service from them.
Would you amend that motion to bring in that additional $2,000 revenue by just raising the cap of the local program funding instead of pulling from additional?
No, I'm going to take that $2,000 out of the $30,000 I just saved on the bridge.
Well, but we still have to raise the local program funding.
Could we take it, would everybody be agreeable to taking, I probably can't ask it that way. We could consider taking it out of the 4th of July fund, it's $2,000, isn't it?
No, we just saved $30,000.
But it has to come from the same fund.
Yeah, it's come from local program.
Gerald,
Commissioner
I don't think
Ezell,
so.
to answer your question, if you guys vote on Commissioner Jansen's motion, we'll just make the change to the total program funding based on the amount you've given us, and we'll put that back in a resolution for you to approve on the 18th.
Okay, I second Commissioner Jansen's motion.
Are we splitting a hair from something?
I just saved us $30,000.
From a
And we're
different
grateful for that.
Holiday Inn Express,
but
too.
yes, you
Here we
did.
go.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. We have one signed up to talk on 8.5, Bob Berry. Bob? Okay, moving on.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
on that roof deal, do we need to vote on that sometime, or
It's just in the,
Be in the final budget.
When we approve the budget, it'll
Vote on the roof of the depot. Yeah, it's in the budget. I think it's $100,000.
it is.
Item point 9 is consent items.
make a motion to approve all consent items.
Motion
Second.
by Mike.
Second.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're right there, but we do have somebody to speak on 9.2. That's Bob as well.
Bob? On 9.2, do we need to pull that out?
I'll make a motion to withdraw 9.2 and approve the rest of the consent items.
Motion by Mike.
I'll second it.
Second by Rodney. All in favor? Or please cast your vote, I'm sorry. Motion carries 6-0. Bob Berry?
Yes, sir. Bob Berry, 702 North Imo Road. The stormwater development fee and utility fee specifically include only the acquisition of land, design, and construction of stormwater detention facilities and major channels. And these are specifically laid out in the ordinance. It does not allow the use of stormwater funds to buy capital equipment. It is earmarked and was put in by the developers who assess themselves all of these fees in order to make sure that we had a homogeneous stormwater system. And I totally appreciate what the city crews have been doing with rented equipment. They've done a great job this last year of catching up on 20 years of not catching up. But the fact is, if we dissolve our stormwater systems by buying capital equipment, you've put a camel's nose under the tent, and it is going to be a serious problem and can be disputed because on the face of the city's ordinances.
Andrea, is that correct?
I don't believe so, but I wanted to ask Gerald, the other stormwater fees also
Utility
go into
fee.
that same fund,
Yeah,
correct?
there's two funds really that we're talking about here. We're talking about the stormwater fund that is funded from the stormwater charge on your utility bill.
Yeah.
And there's stormwater development fees that are paid by developers when they develop an area.
Which I assume that's what you're talking about.
I think.
That's what
I
he's
think you're
talking about.
stormwater development fees.
Yes.
that go into a
I'm
separate-
talking about both of the fees. They were passed simultaneously. The fees on the utility bill was to pay for what they call public improvement. That meaning all of the paved surfaces that were constructed prior to 1987 when McLaughlin did the study. The development fee was to assess every builder that builds anything that has an impervious surface to pay for the construction of his part of a regional municipal detention facility. We've got a world of backup on that from the ordinance itself, from the comp plan, to various changes to the city ordinances. And if we start using the other thing is, the reason that utility fee really is important, the people that have built upstream are contributing to the flooding downstream. The people downstream have a cause of, one of the problems that we found was we have a cause of action against the people upstream. And I'm going to use Garland North as an example. The city bought the land of Garland North with utility fees because it was a mature area. Kevin Fuchsa excavated quite a bit of the facility, but the facility does not work because it doesn't have a controlled discharge. In other words, there's no pipe that makes the water get big during the rain and lets it run in and out slower at the end. Okay, the utility fees are there so that the public people have a device by which their cause that they contribute to the downstream flooding is paid for. And every time we bend these rules on stormwater, you're walking your way into a real big dispute. The classic is going to be at Rolling Oaks, and that is a huge one. I mean, there's 400 or 500 people that have a big claim there, and it's really important that we make sure that this money is used simply for the act of constructing the detention, and I'm going to say major channels, and little tiny things like Heritage Hills, nah, doesn't count. Claremont Channel, no, it's not 600 acres.
Sure.
This law is focused on just the big issues, and if you want to think of who's catching this, it's Brookside and subdivision. And now it's 3 feet higher stormwater in Brookside than it was before we ever started this.
Sure, but this is all just,
Never dug any detention.
But this item is just this one piece of equipment. I mean, I'd like some
This
clarification.
one item,
Andrea.
a piece of equipment,
Sure.
could pay for the excavation of the land you own at Cherokee Detention and can put in the discharge structure at Garland North. So the capital cost of buying this one item could fix 2 detention facilities, turning them from a zero to a hero.
I'd like to see some clarification on whether those funds can be used for that purpose.
I'm actually looking at the ordinance now, and there's no limit to what the,
Not on the utility fees.
Right.
There are not. On the developer fees, they are designated, they are assigned to certain basins and they're
and that's-
tracked separately.
Sure, I just want that opinion to come from our city attorney.
yes,
I can tell you
absolutely.
that the policy and all of the conversations of the committee, and they're all still alive, all still in Enid, and we all still remember it. But the point is, when you take this out of the utility fee, don't be surprised if somebody downstream doesn't whack a big suit on 20 or 30 homes for their contribution of flooding. This is a serious deal, and
The utility fee ordinance has changed a few times over the several years. We've increased it,
Right.
There's been some changes made. But it is available for stormwater purpose.
But the problem is, capital equipment isn't always used for stormwater purpose. And so are you going to rent it out to the stormwater department, if we even have one, that is going to only use that equipment for stormwater? Or is it going to be used for other issues? And by the way, it is defined on what is a channel. That's over 600 acres. And now we find that in the subdivision regulations. So I think you're on a slippery slope, and I'd just like for you to reconsider this and think about it. And at the same time, get with all the engineering folks here and come up with a prioritized system that actually protects people and property as opposed to somebody's pet project. I really, really think that you're looking at a big-time, well, this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
One minor clarification, do we have more than one stormwater fund? Is that it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Fund 43 is the stormwater utility fund that Joan Riley referenced. The stormwater development fee is a separate fee, Fund 45.
Right, okay.
It's used to do things like stormwater detention.
This is coming out of 43.
Yeah, and it's restricted by basin, too. The basins, there's 7 basins.
Okay.
Sure.
Ben, are you comfortable with what you've heard?
I mean, this is one of those where, I mean, I want to make sure that the money is allowed to be spent on that, and it's one of those that I'm relying on the opinion of our city attorney.
Yes, as long as it's coming out of 43, then
And
it is a
Gerald, that
perfectly
is
acceptable.
correct?
Yes, yes, these funds come out of 43.
Okay, thank you.
Next meeting?
I mean, I assume that Andrea will have the same opinion next meeting.
I will.
I understand that.
Sure. I mean, frankly, I would like to, I move we table this until next meeting. I just would like to see some clarification on that language. If you wouldn't mind preparing just a brief memo explaining why that money can be used and circulate that. I move we table this until the next meeting.
Have a motion by Ben, second by Rodney to table it item till 2 weeks from today. Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 5-1. Now we'll go back to the consent items. Do we have any?
Already approved them all.
Yeah, we approved.
Except for this one, we got to approve this one.
Right, that one's
Or
tabled.
Not approved. Well, I guess we
table.
You just
table
tabled it.
this one. All right, we're good.
We're good.
Does the 9.3 count as the same as 9.2 then?
Yep.
I didn't hear what you said, Rodney.
Would 9.3 be the same as 9.2?
Well, we have to pay the rental.
We've already approved 9.3.
Yeah, that's approving paying the rent, not buying equipment. It's different.
We're going to have to pay our bills.
Pay the same fund.
Comes out of the same fund.
It does.
I mean, it did. So it's incredible to me why one was okay and one wasn't.
One would be paying for specific rental to use for a specific purpose. I mean, I do see a distinction there.
Item 10, recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item 11, Trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority regular meeting are all in attendance except for David Van Hooser, who is absent. Item 12, Enid Municipal Authority regular meeting. Conduct a public hearing for the proposed 2013-2014 Enid Municipal Authority financial plan.
This is
Carol?
just a follow-up hearing item in the municipal authority when you're convened as such, which you are now. So if there's anybody that wants to talk about the EMA budget, this would be the time to do it.
Hearing none. We don't have to approve that, do we? Item 12.2,
Make a motion to approve the claims.
approval of claims in the amount of $58,143.31. Motion was made by Mike,
I'll second.
second by Rodney. Further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. Item 13, we will now adjourn to convene as the Enid Enid Municipal Authority meeting and convene as the Enid Economic Development Authority. Under item 14, trustees of the Enid Economic Development Authority regular meeting are all present except for David Van Hooser, who is absent this evening. Item 15, Enid Economic Development Authority regular meeting. Item 15.1, conduct a public hearing on the proposed 2013-2014 Enid Economic Development Authority plan.
This is the same thing for the Enid Economic Development Authority, an opportunity for the public to give you input.
Bob Berry. Hearing that, we will move on to item 15.2, approve the next, I'm okay.
Yes, you're okay. There is someone to speak.
Item 15.2, approve and execute an economic development agreement with Enid Crossing Investors Limited Partnership, a Texas limited partnership.
Mayor, Commissioners, this is the same agreement that was approved by the City of Enid 2 weeks ago. At that time, I failed to put it on the EEDA's agenda. It does have to be approved by both parties. So there have been no changes to this agreement at all.
I'll second.
Motion by Tammy, we have a second by Mike. We do have somebody signed up to speak to item 15.2. Brad Waken. Brad?
Good evening. I'm Brad Waken. I'm a accredited commercial real estate broker licensed with the state of Oklahoma. And I was part of a group of individuals that were helping, volunteering our time to help increase the retail sales in Enid, including Joan Riley was on that committee. That we basically encouraged the City of Enid and Enid Chamber of Commerce to obtain staff and create incentives to promote the new retail sales in Enid. And as of now, I still believe that we have to continue to use these promotional tools like this to stay competitive with the other cities of our size and population. The past year, I've assisted retailers in the process of receiving certain performance-based incentives. All of these contracts completed as of today have been consistent in retail performance, monetary incentives, time of contract, and benefit to the public. This economic development agreement that you're looking at today is not consistent with any of these previous contracts. The original incentive was to sell the building at $27 per square foot, which is a huge incentive for any developer. But above and beyond that, the incentives offered previously on our other development agreements have an average of $11 per square foot for retail, where this Homeland agreement is 3 times this average at $29.70. All but 2 of our economic development agreements have terms of 4 to 7 years, where our Homeland agreement calls for over twice that time of 15 years. All previous contracts have required obtaining or retaining specific retail businesses that Enid is actually losing sales tax dollars on for not being in town. The Homeland contract, for one, does not require a single new retailer to enter into the Enid market, not one. Two, it does not consider that some of the retail that's going to be gained by this site will be taken away from other sites, which existing businesses in Enid will lose some sales from our cannibalization rate that will go to this property. Three, this does not prohibit the developer from relocating any existing tenant in the city of Enid at any of our other shopping centers to move into the old Homeland building. Lastly, all economic development agreements specify the use of the rebate monies for public benefit. Specific uses in other contracts include improvements to the building and property. These items such as sidewalks, utilities, property appearance, signage, code and safety issues. The current contract does not address any of these improvements, and further, it does not describe what the complete project is. It doesn't, it could be sitting exactly the way it is, and it's a complete project as long as somebody opens up. We should carefully consider the consequences of entering into an open and vague contract, which could have the opposite effect of its intended purposes. Enid must have consistency in the incentive process so that Enid always remains fair and impartial. I respectfully request that the City Commission and the Enid Economic Development Authority to consider to table this economic development agreement for further review to address these outstanding issues. Thanks.
Thank you. Bob.
Yeah, there it is. Missed it.
You are signed up.
Thank you, sir. Bob Berry, 702 North Imo Road. I'm here today to talk about the same issue, but a completely different angle. And first, I've got to get a little something off my chest. I sent a paper to the commission and to the city manager and city attorney with a lot of legal rumagro in there just to make sure that we had done our administrative remedy. And I got a little note back from the city asking if I was working for one or the other of the developers. That really kind of ticked me off. I know all of the developers. I know all the developers in Oklahoma, and I know a bunch of them out of Dallas. And we actually did some planning work on behalf of our retail task force for the Homeland building to convert it into a big box. The current project is so far away from what the retail task force saw for this building. Reason being is the big boxes are not building stores anymore. They're locating in closed big boxes. This building is being turned into a very small so-so strip center with 3 or 4 tenants. We lose the opportunity of acquiring a big box. Contrary to what I've heard from the commission, there are large furniture stores that have a complete line of smaller furniture stores that have been looking at Enid. They got to have 50,000 feet. Academy and various other tenants in the sporting goods stores have a junior department store. Kohl's, for instance, needs that amount of square feet but can't be in the mall because of a deal with Dillard's. We knew all of this, and so we thought this was a slam dunk for a brand new, really big deal in Enid. And we're doing something that's about 1/3 the size of Nielsen Square. Having said all of that, now that I feel so much better, one thing that you should know is, and Commissioner Jansen, you mentioned it, that we can't make a gift. The problem is the city already made a gift. You put this into place in your meeting of April 4th to give them $950,000 in order to close on the contract that they had already signed. because they ask you to do it. Okay? That's a fact. And now, really, a stroke of luck, you have a chance to put the genie back into the bottle. And I would encourage you to do it, not for the good of mankind or whatever, but for your own self-interest. The Enid has got a really weird reputation in the industry as being a pushover. You ask for it and you get it. The problem is that when you give too much and it becomes a gift, that is a violation of state statute. There is no public purpose, there is no public improvement. Had you had series of meetings, you could have determined what a public improvement was. And all your TIFs and all these other things, you do that. But in this case, you just gave them $950,000. Further, there is no criteria on what they have to do to get it, other than they have to have something that's open on December the 25th. This brings up an issue. If we continue to do this, what worries me is there's going to be a series of backlashes that are going to come from this. These are extraordinarily punitive, and they're directed at the people that do it. And I gave you the information on that. You can take it or leave it. But trust me, I don't know that you want to have to prove it, because the city can't defend you. And we did it in good faith. I'm hoping that you can take 2 weeks and go put some public purpose in it. Now, you can't fix the fact that you sold the building in violation of the liquidation of municipal assets. When you do real estate, you have to actually advertise it, and there's a protocol. That didn't happen. The Homeland guy came in, made a pitch to the city. That rumor got out, so somebody else came in, then somebody else, and somebody else. The protocol of getting the best price was not followed. I don't have a Ouija board to fix that one, but I think that the gift part is the one that will have the most punitive reaction to it. And I would encourage you to take 2 weeks and fix it. And I'm arguing this case on the benefit of the buyer of the Homeland building, because here's how it works. You have 2 years to file an action on this case of a gift. What can happen is they can open and they can do everything they're supposed to do. Okay, and you can lay around like a water moccasin under a log, and you can wait 23 months, and then you can file it, and if you prevail, it tolls their deal. If that buyer were sitting here, I would be representing him to tell you, please don't do him those favors, because I guarantee you, some retailer in town that's getting his ox is getting gored on this thing knows the deal. And you'll have to sit around waiting for 24 months to see what happens. And if it happens, it will be horrid. And it'll be very difficult to get people to run for city commission again if we open this Pandora's box. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
There's a motion and a second.
Pardon me?
I said there's a motion and a second.
Mayor, I would like to mention, if I may, that I voted against this 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to vote against it tonight for the same reason.
And I, like Ron, voted against this 2 weeks ago. Regardless of, I don't have an opinion as to what Mr. Berry has brought up. I think this is a lousy precedent, whether it's legal or not, to come back to the city and ask more money and give it to them. And that's why I voted against it last time, and that's why we'll vote against it this time too.
I voted for it. I hate it. I agree with everything being said. But go back to what Brad has brought up and said. I hear from everybody, well, there have been 3 other people that have bought it. Why didn't they come buy it?
Exactly.
Why
And you
didn't
know,
it come
there's not
by?
a law that says we
Maybe
have
I
to
wasn't on here to know all this, but why did it get here ahead of time?
There's not a deal that says we have to do every single deal the exact same way either. So this business about, you did it this way, and you did it this way, and you did it this way, oh, but you didn't do it this way, so what? We don't have to do it the exact same way every time. We have to look at everything on a case-by-case basis. You have something to add?
Just to answer Rodney's, we do have a contract, and we did have a year ago, February, that I've discussed with most of the commissioners individually. We placed a contract on the property, and we also placed another contract later on, even in the past few months. But you guys are already under contract, and you really can't discuss selling the building to us until this contract is done.
Exactly.
So it wasn't anything that we could actually discuss with the commission.
My question is, where were you 6 years ago prior to the last year? You had 6 years to do that. We've sat on this for well over a year now, since we signed the contract. And we have a contract, and we have to abide by that contract. But you and the 3, 4, 1 company that you're talking about will buy it. They weren't around. Secondly, if they don't produce any retail sales,
They don't get their money.
they don't get paid. In the last 7 years, how much income, ad valorem tax, federal, state income tax that their employees make have been derived on that property? 7 years times 0 is very easy for my math.
AWC has been paying property taxes all the way up until the point of sale of the city where it became
Good
a
for
city
them.
property.
Good for them.
And we have been, over the past several years, we have been negotiating with AWG.
Brad, that's their
for this
choice.
property.
That's their choice to pay the taxes because they couldn't get it sold, except the way it got sold. We have done nothing as far as income to the city. That ad valorem tax, 85% of that's going to go to the school system. Granted, that stays in Enid, and the school system is part of our mix in Enid, Oklahoma.
There were 4 people that turned in bids, but they didn't turn them in on the same day because the city never did an RFP. And I know of 3, there's 4 companies, one from Alabama.
Wait a minute. Turned in bids to buy the homeland property. Where were they before the city? Pardon me?
You couldn't buy the homeland because of the terms that AWG had placed.
Bingo.
So we were able to.
So, and the city was able to.
Well, okay, compare, all this
Wait a
is,
minute, one at a time, Ben.
all this is, at this point, entirely irrelevant. There's a contract with Hunt, which has so much time to close. There is, at the moment, up for approval, a change to that contract or an addendum to that contract, or a separate contract.
A separate contract.
A separate
It's an
contract
incentive, yeah.
to give them additional money. If we vote no on this, they can still close under the original contract. Now, they won't or they will, and that's totally their call. But regardless, all this, what may or may not have been, at this point is irrelevant because we have a contract which we have to perform under or they have to perform under. And, whoever, if someone breaches, we have to live with that consequence. This discussion may come up for review again if Hunt doesn't close or something else happens. But at this point, it's irrelevant again to the city has a contract, we have to abide by that.
We keep talking about the $950,000, but if they create, and we have to pay the $950,000, in the meantime, we've made 1.5 times the $950,000 in sales tax revenue for the city of Enid.
Sure.
It's not a lose-lose situation.
Sure.
We haven't brought up what the city gets from us if that project gets developed. And we have to wait until Hunt decides to close.
I'd like to call for a vote.
They have I will finish what I was going to say, and then we'll take care of that. But we have to wait until the closing, and if they don't do their job, then we've got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah.
They have a call for the question.
Call for the question.
All in favor, we don't have to have a second. Am I correct?
For the call.
To call, no, you can vote on the call.
Motion in a second.
Or if there is no objection to ending discussion, you can move to the motion and
Are
second.
there any objections? Who made the motion?
Tammy.
Commissioner Wilson and Commissioner Stewart seconded.
Repeat your motion again.
I made a motion to approve 15.2.
To approve item 15.2. Who seconded? Michael? Any further discussion? Please cast your vote. Motion carries 4-2. Item 15.3, approval of claims in the amount of $8,513.33.
I move we approve.
Second. Motion by Ben, second by Ron. Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0. We will now adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Under public discussion, item number 17. We have Renee Massengale.
My name's Renee Massengale. I live here in Enid. I'm very familiar with Mr. Neal, although I did not know that that was on the agenda tonight. I know about that because I deal with it 4 times a week. I have multiple appointments. And I consider it extremely insulting when the bus is shut down, there is no voicemail, and I can't get through to a living soul except City Hall. That was prior to Mr. Neal. Believe it or not, I'm impressed with him. He's actually managed to make some changes that work. He's actually managed to do some things that I'm not calling and yelling about. I do know how to pick up a phone. He's actually done something, which says a lot. And the fact that he's trying to put in more technology is going to help. I still would like to have a voicemail so that I can leave a message or have something playing saying the bus is closed. To me, it's just simple. I depend on the bus. I got stranded. Why? 3 inches of snow. Why? Nobody was there. Oh, there was 3 inches of snow. I was born up north. 6 feet of snow was grounds for closing the bus. Not 3 inches. Not impressed with that. As for what I wrote down on the sheet earlier, I have had multiple issues with all kinds of things. And believe it or not, it's really, really hard to get things done when it feels like you're the only one talking. You know, I can open my mouth up and I can talk all day long. But if it sounds like gibberish to the other person, it doesn't do me a damn bit of good. I need people who can communicate. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an architect. But I am somebody who can communicate. And yeah, this meeting has run over, and I realize that. But I also have other issues. One of them is a real short attention span for remembering things. And I'll be the first one to say it, and I'll say it here in public. I forgot what I wrote down.
Warrant notices.
Ah, thank you.
If you would, speak to that.
Okay?
And
I've been where I'm living for about a year. I got a notice in the mail saying that unless some Larry Coates goes to the city and turns himself in on his outstanding warrants, that the door would be broke down. So I called the city attorney's office, who had put this out, and said, I don't know who this idiot is. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know where he lives, and I don't know who he hangs with. Yeah, right, uh-huh. I said, send the cops. They'll do an inspection. This past Saturday at 8 a.m., we're here to check your house. They did. So why did I get yet another notice stating that this guy was at my home and I know where to find him? I went to the police department. Actually, I called them up first, reminded them, got hung up on. Real good job there. Then turned around and showed up, and they didn't want to hear from me, so I made it real simple. Send a cop to the lobby. And I wouldn't talk to anybody until they did show up. Then they got irritated because, hey, we thought there was something else going on. Well, if you had listened to me on the phone earlier, you would have known what was going on, and it wouldn't have been an issue. I get a third notice. I will start making copies of it, and I will start making notices and filling out forms elsewhere.
thank you, and please wrap up your comments.
There are ways of getting people to stop harassing the general public. I cooperated beyond what was expected, and I'm expecting the same courtesy in return. Stop harassing me.
Thank you. We have another one. Andrew Sonny Lawrence, Super Bowl Brothers.
Say good evening to everybody. My name is Andrew Lawrence. A lot of you guys know him by Sonny Lawrence, the football coach. This evening, I want to say thank you, Mayor of Enid, General Managers of Enid, Ron Jansen of the City Council, and the rest of the city person. We're here this evening to ask and invite for Saturday, June the 15th. Come and celebrate with us at Governor Spring Park. We heard in the past that you wasn't invited. You are.
You stayed through a long meeting to invite us. Thank you.
You should have got at the top of the
It
list.
started from 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We had a lot of things going on. These are just few of the brothers that we had came with me this evening. A lot of them worked, some couldn't off. Here's the treasurer, here's my coroner there. So I'm gonna let them talk for a little bit, but first I want to explain to Ron, he'd been down there before. And this is some of the flyers that we do have out that we put on different buildings and different places. And we've been doing this 38 years. So it's not just a fly-by-night thing. Do anybody have an idea what the Juneteenth is all about?
Freedom.
Freedom of what?
Slaves.
For who?
Absolutely everyone.
Everybody. Okay.
No one was supposed to.
Sonny, but before you step away, I want you to promise me something. Next year, when you come to invite us, I want you to let us know in advance, and we'll put you on the agenda. And you're not going to have to sit here for 2 hours to give us an invitation. If any of you haven't been down to the Juneteenth celebration they put on down at Government Springs Park, you really missed one of Enid's greatest celebrations. These gentlemen do a great job. They feed an awful lot of people, a lot of awful good food, and I certainly would encourage everybody to go down there and join them on the 15th.
Thank you, Ron. Okay. My name is Vincent Fields. I'm the treasurer with the Super Bowl Brothers. Just a brief history. Started out as a bunch of guys chipping in a bunch of money to watch the Super Bowl. One year we had a little extra money left over, so we thought, what can we do with this? Let's do a picnic for the community. Naturally, we chose Juneteenth as the day to do the picnic. Eventually, we decided that we could do more, so we started picking out a couple of needy families during Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we delivered dinners to these families. Then we started with scholarships. We started off with $100. Back then, that was enough to cover your books. Nowadays, that probably won't even cover one book. So that's where we're at now. We're looking to move forward and onward. Now, in regard to Juneteenth, we celebrate that because that's the day that the ship sailed into Galveston to let us know that the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed. Nowadays, news happens, 5 minutes later, you can see it on the net. Back then, it took a whole year for the ship to come into Galveston. And that day that they announced it was June 19th. So every year on the third Saturday of June, that's what we celebrate. And our Juneteenth celebration here in Enid is the biggest and the best in the entire state of Oklahoma. You have celebrations in Oklahoma City, in Tulsa, Lawton. Ours dwarfs them by far. We have OSBI come in, we do blood drives. We have the sheriffs comes in where parents can fingerprint their kids, in case of unfortunate kidnappings, Amber Alerts, things like that. And we offer fun and games and free food. Always a big tip. So that's what the Super Bowl Brothers are all about. And if you're available June 15, come on down and join us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm Jim Pritchett, and we're trying to make this so much more than just a bunch of people from the east side come down and get free food and that kind of thing. We've got games going on this year for the kids, giving away a couple of bicycles, other prizes. This is growing. We keep thinking. We have meetings. Everybody, sometimes we might even get in an argument, about what we want to do. But we're here for the community, and we need y'all to come down here. Bring your family, your kids. We'll see you there.
Thanks, guys.
We also have Judy Watson signed up. Judy?
Hi, my name is Judy Watson. I live at 2206 West Main. My husband and I have lived in Enid since 1992, and we've been at our present location since 1994. I'm a retired teacher, as is my husband, and I currently serve on the Enid Tree Board, and we love Enid. I'm here to comment on the vacating of the platted tract described as Lot 0, Block 3 in the Broadway Heights 3rd Edition, also known as Lions Park. Lions Park has been a part of Enid since 1941. It is designated as a mini park, but that does not mean it is not used every day. We watch ball teams practice, families enjoying the play area, and people just enjoying the beauty of the trees in the park. The park is maintained by the North Enid Lions Club, so the only cost to the city is for trash pickup. This was a park that was indicated to need some updates, and in the recent bond issue, even though it failed, contained $170,000 for those renovations. Does this action now mean that the park is not worth anything anymore as a park? And we hope not. After receiving our official notification that the above was being considered, I made an appointment with Fire Chief Joe Jackson on May the 15th. We discussed the issue of placing a fire station in the park location. He indicated to me that this was not his first choice for the location of the station. He and Mr. Benson had been looking for over a year for a place for the fire station. He prefers land either on South Hoover or further west on Garriott from the present location. He stated that several accidents had been caused by the fire trucks pulling out onto Garriott. But when I called the police department for any records that they had about this, they did not return my call. Chief Jackson stated that he wanted to move the fire station further north and west. The location of Lions Park is 3 blocks north and a half a block west of their present location. This does not seem like enough of a change of position to warrant closing a park. When I questioned him about putting the station in the middle of a residential neighborhood, he stated that every station in town was in a neighborhood. Well, if you'll go to each of the stations, none are surrounded by homes. Maybe on 1 or 2 sides, but not on all 4 sides. It's been stated to one of our homeowners that the fire department wants to use Randolph as its main route to the west. If you've never driven out Randolph past Waller Middle School as it takes up or lets out, the traffic congestion is a nightmare. If this could be construed as a reason to 4-lane Randolph and take the property of the homeowners along that street, I don't feel that that's a very sound decision. A question that we have is the property on Garriott where the fire station is now, along with the large piece of property behind it, going to be sold? If so, why not use that money to purchase land that is available? If it's not sold, why not use the land that it's on to build another station? A different exit point could be used along Cleveland. As you've probably read in the newspaper, the people who live in and around Lions Park, along with our friends all around the city, are not happy. We've tried to understand the reasoning for this decision, but we are having a hard time. We have the greatest respect for our first responders, and we understand that the fire department needs a new building. This one is too small, and they don't like to enter on Garriott. But putting it in the middle of a neighborhood does not make sense. When someone is looking for a place for their home or their business, the big statement has always been location, location, location. We do not believe that Lions Park in the middle of a residential neighborhood is the right location. We believe the reason it was chosen is because it will not cost the city anything. But it will cost the residents of the neighborhood and all others in Enid who come for a respite a whole lot. Thank you for hearing my concerns.
Okay.
The next one that signed up is Paula Nightingale. Paula?
Gosh, I can't say any better than what she said. I thought she did a good job. I have been driving around looking at other locations, and I would like for the city and the fire chief to check out 3220 West Randolph. It is at Hoover Street, and it is a vacated house that is in poor repair and owned by a gentleman in Edmond. It sits on just over an acre of ground, and it would give you the east-west access you need, far enough west from Waller Junior High, but not farther west than the Staples location than it is on Randolph. And I would suggest that you just look at that piece of land and see if it might be a good alternative for you. Okay.
The next person that signed up is Dan Fales. Is it F-A-L-E-S? Dan? Dan is not here. Do we have? Rod Goodwin? Do I have the name correct?
Yeah.
I'll let you give your name.
My name is Rodney Goodwin. I'm a business owner here in Enid. Got a lot of things that concern me, mainly things that cost me money. And I think I have some improvements. You guys have to prioritize how the money is spent. How are my tax dollars, along with anybody else's tax dollars, including customers that spend money with me, can help contribute. So I can contest to the water problem we have that the gentleman's talking about. I have a customer over off of Arrowhead in Cedar Ridge, out there by Atwoods, who is telling me that their neighbors flood, and they don't. As a contractor, what I recommend always is get gutters and then trench them in with some drain tile, get them out to the street through a curb drain that goes to the stormwater. If everybody in this town did that, I don't think the stormwater system we have set up would be able to hold it. So that's just my personal experience. I can note on that. My main concerns happen to be with, if you guys spend money, it won't just be fixing things, it'll be investments. According to OSHA definitions of distractions and time loss, I experience them all the time. I had a loss last year that if I had a family, I wouldn't be able to run my business. You name it, I lost it in every which way possible. So one thing that hits me every day is I live on the east side. I've been there for 25 years out of the 34 years of my age. I went to Phillips University before they shut down. I got qualifications. I've got many achievements I've made. I'm not going to waste anybody's time. Every day, though, when I drive, most of the time it's to the west side to work. To get from there, I have to go down Main Street. Now we got a stop sign in. I understand that. We had a wreck. But I don't have any direct routes. The trains, which we all have concerns about, which Warren Buffett is in charge of, who makes a ton of money, doesn't want to do anything about 4th Street, which has been hurting Athey's business and deterring me from going there because of the trains. Not to mention the roads are in poor condition throughout the east side, and I can contest to that clear back to the early 80s. They never get much help. However, I live at 1716 East Oklahoma, and I was so grateful when we got a new street. It wasn't the road condition, it was the water main that motivated it, though. I have an office down here at 100 South Washington, Suite 2. So I'm part of downtown, and I do everything I can. I understand about overhead. Bumps on the street cause vibrations. Vibrations by big trucks, it's a scientific electrical engineering study, be proven in a court of law, that on your outlets in your house, the screws will back off, the wire will come loose after 20 to 30, 40 years, depending on how much vibration you get, by simply trucks driving down your street. Now, if that's a scientific fact, it's a scientific fact that when we are driving down the streets in our vehicles that are very bumpy, they experience vibrations, which deteriorate and destruct our electronic systems. So if we could spend some money to just smooth, I'm not talking replace all of them, but smooth some of them up. I drive a van, and I got to drive like granny super slow in order to not spill anything. That's a distraction. According to OSHA, just driving, and I don't answer my cell phone while I'm driving. Upon 2 miles of driving, you experience approximately 4,000 observations. Out of those 4,000 observations, 1 of your 40 decisions you make is incorrect. I can't tell you how many times I've had a cup of coffee spill on me because I hit a bump. So, not to mention, the Enid Transit has overhead, including maintenance. The police department has overhead and maintenance in their vehicles. The fire department, the code enforcement, animal control, everybody who works on the east side has to spend extra money on their vehicle repairs. Anybody who does business on the east side, including the city of Enid, experiences more. It's only a scientific fact, guaranteed, that their electronic ignition control modules, their computers, you name it, deteriorates faster than what it does on a nice smooth road, not to mention shocks and everything else on a vehicle. So as an investment of helping those roads out, it wouldn't just help GCS out. It would help out everybody. Infrastructure, you guys have heard it tonight, is major. And I lived here for approximately 18 years. Phillips shut down. I went up to college up in Illinois. I saw bicycle tracks way before we ever thought about them. I saw nice streets, couldn't find a dirt road, which is actually one of the things that motivated me to come back here after my mom passed away, because I had my business there, but I decided to move it here. I love dirt roads. I put up with the bumps, but here in town, it's so frustrating. It leads me to a second point. The street lights we have, I don't have my electrical engineering degree. I quit college before I had it. I got 20-some hours left. I was running my business, both were suffering. I decided to do what makes me money. But being in Edwardsville, Illinois, in Madison County, our lights ran so smoothly. Everything ran smoothly. I run constantly behind. If I could actually get caught up, you guys would have more tax dollars because I'd have more work done in a period of time. Just by simply getting stopped on O&K Garrett, along with 9 or 10 other people that are traveling this way on O&K or Van Buren, and one car pulls up to a stoplight and he immediately switches to stop 10 people that are going 45 miles per hour, that's only economically bad for everything, including the environment. There's more pollution wasted when a car has to slow down from 45 and get back up to 45. When a car sits there, they need to be on a timed delay. So when a sensor picks it up, okay, it doesn't immediately set it off. We let it sit there for 10 or 15 seconds or however long. I've timed them. I understand downtown's got to be the way it's got to be because it's downtown, you know. And it'd be different if there are certain few ones, and then over on 10th and Garrett, I know it's got to be a certain way for Garfield County Detention Center. And there's certain things that have to be certain ways. But whenever I encompass all of them, because I've worked everywhere from El Paseo, I've worked everywhere in town, I work out of town, Wakita, you name it, I've been there. The lights aren't properly timed. We could spend, I'm sure it wouldn't be over $1 million, but it'd probably be a good couple $100,000. I don't know. But to get an engineer to come and time our lights, that requires a air hose to go out, that gets put on computer, gets transferred to data, tells you when the cars are there, what happened, and how many got let pass, and et cetera. That would greatly improve my business. And along with everybody else's business.
Please wrap up your comments.
Yeah, well, that was number 2. Number 3, I would love to see the lights downtown painted along with the bridge. By the way, I'm EPA certified, I'm OSHA insured and bonded through the city. I'd probably do it for $14,100, paint the bridge, and there save you some more money. I'm serious, so maybe I'll find out through the code enforcement tomorrow who I need to go through to make a bid on it, okay? But I would love to see those lights. I'm downtown, I may be on the corner of downtown, but I'm downtown. And so I'd love to see that. Number 4, one ways I've lost money is by, trustworthiness on my part. We are a right-to-work state. I've given people the benefit of the doubt when I shouldn't. I've changed GCS's policies. It took me 7 years to do it. Now I drug test. The problem with drug testing, it's only as good as the test. Our probation office is only as good as the drug testing can be. And one problem that I have is that I've hired people who use meth addicts, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, trying to get them to go to the church. I'm a trustee at Bethany Methodist over here on 10th and Maple. You name it, I've tried and helped, and it's done nothing but cost me money directly, indirectly through theft, et cetera. But I know for a fact, not to mention I only hire Christians, but a fact is, if our probation system would submit drug tests, not just urinating into a cup.
Are you talking about the city of Enid?
Well, yeah, talking about the city of Enid. If they would do a hair follicle, let me tell you what, it doesn't have to be but once every 3 months. And people that do meth can pass a drug test within a week to 2 weeks. They brag about it and tell me about it. And so we're not doing anything except enabling, and enabling, in all my opinion, if you're an enabler, you're just as guilty as the person doing it, because we are enabling them to become an addict.
Sir, you need to get back on something pertains to the city of Enid.
Well, the city of Enid should administer better drug tests. Once every 3 months. It goes back 3 months on a hair follicle. But then that would scare the people, that would keep them from doing meth, that would keep them more productive. Instead of getting a paycheck from me and working halfway through the job and needing some money and then going off and buying meth and not showing back up and then get thrown in jail, they wouldn't be able to do their drugs.
You want to take that one up with the county?
Yeah.
Well,
District court.
I understand that, but that's just the suggestions I have. I'm just here for that.
Sir, I think that's
Streetlight
enough.
painting is in the budget, and Van Buren and Garrett are state highways.
Yes.
Yeah. It gets difficult messing with legislature, I understand.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion by Ron, second by Mike.
Third and fourth and fifth and sixth.
Please cast your vote. Motion carries 6-0.